Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my honor to introduce one of the most important officials that's part of our industry, certainly making decisions on our industry's future, and also a fierce advocate for military families, and that is the Honorable Kay Bailey Hutchison. She was first elected in 1993 in a special election, and as many of you know, being from Texas, she was the first and only representative to represent Texas in the United States Senate. Now in her fourth term, Senator Hutchison serves as a ranking member on the United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. In this role, she has fought for a variety of policies that are critical to our industry and has given us the tools for our nation to compete. Late last year, Senator Hutchison secured the inclusion of provisions in the reauthorization of the America Competes Act that we support. America Competes will improve math and science education that will fill the industry needs for graduates with degrees in science and technology, engineering, and mathematics. The Center has also long advocated for open market principles, recognizing that entrepreneurs would create where there are opportunities and openings and where innovation is allowed to thrive, new jobs. And she does not believe that government should be picking winners and losers. Today, she is the Dean of the Republican Senate for Women. Please join me in welcoming United States Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. It's an honor to have her with us today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. It is great to be here, and as a Texan, I want to welcome all of you here to our great state. And since some people ask me questions about Texas that I think are funny, I wanted to just give you a few of the pointers if you travel around a little bit. First, in Texas, if you're on one of our freeways and you see someone with a turn signal on, it's probably a factory defect. If you order a diet drink, you will get a margarita without salt. You will meet someone who has used the high school football schedule to schedule their daughter's wedding. Never stare at the driver of a pickup truck that has a bumper sticker on the back that says, "Keep honking, I'm reloading." And finally, if you happen to run your car into a ditch, don't panic. Very shortly, 4 men in a 4-wheel drive pickup truck with a 12-pack of beer and a tow chain will be along. Don't try to help them. This is what they live for. We are glad you're here. And I want to just say that I appreciate TIA bringing this convention to Texas because you are the future of innovation and how telecommunications is going to be for the future, and we love doing that in Texas. I'm sure you've noticed that people here like business. Texas has no income tax. It offers very limited regulatory burdens, access to highly qualified STEM graduates, tort reform, and right-to-work laws. In short, we really do like business. Chief Executive Magazine just conducted a survey of 500 CEOs, and they voted Texas the best state for business for the 7th year in a row. If only the federal government would replicate the business-friendly atmosphere that we have in Texas. Unfortunately, as you may be aware, that is not the case. In fact, I have to tell you, sometimes I listen to the debate on the Senate floor, and it becomes very apparent to me that some of our United States leaders just don't like business. That is, unfortunately, the case, and sometimes it seems to me like plaintiffs' lawyers are the only employers they really like. There's no question that members of the information and communication technology industry have the ingenuity to develop and deliver communications innovation for the 21st century. But many of you are forced to confront the reality that today the federal government is disadvantaging our industry with an environment that is increasingly hostile to America's innovators. the extraordinarily high corporate tax rate, uncertainty about the availability of the R&D tax credit, rising labor costs, the difficulty of hiring skilled workers, and new and exotic, I have to say, regulations are all conspiring against the ability of many sectors, including telecommunications, to compete against countries that do not burden industry with this type of environment. Foreign manufacturers, like those in China, for instance, are able to produce sophisticated equipment at lower costs because government subsidies are there, loose regulatory environments, and an uninterrupted access to cheap labor. Nations around the globe are pouring money into their R&D systems with the hope of attracting our scientists and surpassing our nation in cutting-edge technologies. This news sounds bleak, but despite these competitive pressures, during the next decade, U.S. demand for scientists and engineers is expected to increase by 4 times. In fact, the pace of economic growth may very well depend on how well our nation can meet the demands of the global marketplace for highly skilled researchers and advanced products. Let me give you one Texas example. Several years ago, Texas Instruments, which is headquartered in Dallas, as we all know, was trying to decide whether to build a new semiconductor chip fabrication plant in the United States. Not where in the United States, but if. Can you imagine in this kind of time that we wouldn't be doing everything to welcome our businesses to build in America? But Texas Instruments looked at the costs to build around the world and found that it was much cheaper to build in several other places. But they wanted to build in the Dallas area. The company is committed to developing a unified infrastructure in Texas, producing a skilled workforce of researchers, scientists, and engineers. They did build here, and they opened the doors of a 1 million square foot facility in 2009. They were helped in the effort by the repatriation tax holiday that allowed them to bring overseas earnings back to the states to offset the cost to build here. In today's environment, it might not be possible. Unfortunately, we may not see many more companies making this choice unless we do something dramatic to lower the cost to build, innovate, and do business in America. What are the necessary steps? First, we need to reform our tax system to incentivize innovation and investment in America. The United States once led the way in developing pro-growth, pro-innovation policies. We were the first in the world to offer companies an R&D tax credit, the first to allow universities to patent products originating from federal R&D funds. However, other countries have now caught up, and in many cases surpassed our country. In fact, the U.S. R&D tax credit is only incremental. More aggressive countries are now giving a flat tax credit for all R&D expenditures. Ambitious countries have shrewdly adopted the best American practices that have spurred technology innovations. And while other nations adopt and advance our earlier strategies, we're taking a step backward. We haven't even made the R&D tax credit permanent, even though many of us have tried to do this time and time and time again. That's bad enough. But as many of you know probably, we also impose one of the steepest corporate tax rates in the world, 35%. Only Japan surpasses us, but Japan is now looking to lower their corporate tax rate, which would give America the dubious honor of having the highest one in the world. Lowering the corporate tax rate would be a substantial part of any long-term tax reform for the innovation and support of our technology community. Nationally, we must educate more of our students, inspire them to pursue the STEM courses in science, technology, engineering, and math. We need to work with our nation's trade schools as well. community colleges, technical institutions to bolster the foundation of America's 21st century workforce. Not everyone has to have that college education to have a really good paying and highly skilled job. Last December, the United States Congress did something that didn't get very much play, but was a significant achievement. We passed the reauthorization of the America Competes Act. The first time that we passed that bill was in response to the Rising Above the Gathering Storm report from the National Academies of Science and Engineering. In the reauthorization bill, we prioritize education, quality teaching in science, technology, engineering, and math for our future innovators. Groundbreaking research into new frontiers, out-of-the-box technologies are also part of the new America Competes Act. Technology transfer from our national labs to agencies in the private sector, another priority. If we want to do the last part of a reform that will innovate and help our innovators, we must work to open our markets. We have free trade agreements now pending, and they have been pending for quite a while with Korea, Panama, and Colombia. We need to push those through right away and look for other areas that we can have free trade agreements with so that we can have more of a market for our goods. And finally, if we are going to really open our country to the innovation that we have always known in the past, we must look at the regulatory environment. If American businesses are going to live up to their vast capabilities, we have got to eliminate the heavy hand of government regulation that is stifling growth. The federal government continues to find really innovative ways to impose regulatory requirements on our businesses. In my role as ranking member of the Senate Commerce Committee, there are a few simple questions I ask myself when I am looking at a bill that comes in to authorize yet another regulatory burden. Is there a need for a regulation? Could the concerns that have arisen be worked out through the market activity? Those are the two questions that must be answered. If not, then it is just another gratuitous power grab by the federal government that is attempting to substitute its judgment for the marketplace and consumers. I believe net neutrality is a prime example of misguided regulatory intervention. I was extremely disappointed when the FCC finally took the last step to grant itself regulatory power over all forms of communication. Over the past 20 years, the internet has grown and flourished without burdensome regulations imposed by Washington. With the strength of free market forces behind it, the internet has been an open platform for innovation. It has spurred business development and job creation. What about that needs to be fixed? The FCC issued its ruling without demonstrating that intervention is necessary. In fact, hundreds of thousands of pages of comments from dozens of interested parties came in after the regulation was put out. The agency was able to produce only 3 paragraphs total in order to give examples of alleged conduct by service providers that raised concerns about how network activities are managed. It is worth noting that in each of these instances, public pressure and the threat of competition corrected those actions. That is what a marketplace is supposed to do. Net neutrality began as a political movement by progressives to vilify successful technology companies for being too big or too successful. Make no mistake, this is a regulation for the sake of regulation. The consequences will be costly. When service providers are fined for so-called discrimination, the cost will be passed on to consumers. When you have to get FCC approval to offer a new product or a new process, There will be less flexibility by companies that own and operate the networks. Regulators are not independent operators. They can only act legally if there is an act of Congress that delegates them an authority for a specific purpose. Ronald Reagan used to say, the 9 most terrifying words that anyone in America wants to hear are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Across almost all sectors of the economy, federal regulators are growing exponentially. Consider that in the first 2 years of the Obama administration, the federal government has issued 132 new economically significant rules, those that have an impact of more than $100 million per year. That is 40% higher than either Presidents Bush or Clinton. And the federal regulatory workforce in 2 years has grown by 16%. I don't need to tell you what a problem this can be. Higher taxes, reduced access to skilled labor, and an oppressive regulatory environment will cripple our global competitiveness. There are areas, and I want to mention one that I think you all have heard about already, where actually we can do some good things, constructive, and I think unleash further advances in telecommunications technology. I have been working closely with my partner on the Commerce Committee, the Chairman, Jay Rockefeller, to fashion comprehensive wireless spectrum legislation. After months of negotiation, we have agreed on a framework as of yesterday that we will move forward in the next couple of weeks. At its core, this bill will provide an allocation of spectrum to public safety, and combined with financial support from auction proceeds and governance reform, it will lead to the construction of a nationwide interoperable broadband network for first responders. This will fulfill the last outstanding recommendation of the 9/11 Commission. But there is good news for the commercial markets as well. The bill will take a broad approach that will free up considerable spectrum for commercial use in the next few years. Over the long term, it will help the government allocate spectrum more efficiently. Ultimately, this should produce as much as $400 billion in new economic activity through licensed and unlicensed uses of spectrum, a constant supply of new spectrum, and important new research and development activities. I believe it has become a good, balanced piece of technology legislation, and we will work with all of the stakeholders to address lingering concerns. In conclusion, I just want to say that we hear a lot of talk in Washington about winning the future, but our future in the global marketplace will be suffocated by high taxes and overregulation. As ranking member of the Senate Commerce Committee, I promise you that I will continue to work at reducing these burdens. I have total confidence that through American ingenuity and spirit, we can continue to out-innovate and out-compete the rest of the world. We just can't let government get in the way. Thank you for coming to Texas. I'm very pleased to be with you today and look forward to working with you on the spectrum bill and anything that will spur economic activity, and we will try to stop everything that is standing in the way. Thank you very much.